For nearly a century, the name Murdaugh carried a kind of power rarely seen in the American South. In the quiet stretches of South Carolina's Lowcountry, the family was more than influential, they were an institution. 3 generations served as the region's top prosecutors. Their law firm shaped the justice system. Their connections reached into courtrooms, police departments, banks, and the deep roots of local politics. To many, the Murdaughs weren't just respected, they were untouchable. But behind the polished reputation, something darker was quietly growing. A legacy built on influence began to crack under the weight of secrets, financial pressure, lawsuits, betrayals, and a public image that no longer matched the truth lived behind closed doors. The facade of strength was slipping, piece by piece, long before the world realized it. And then, on a warm June night in 2021, everything shattered. At the family's sprawling Moselle estate, an isolated property tucked between fields and woods, a discovery was made that would change the course of the Murdaugh dynasty forever. A mother and her youngest son were found near the dog kennels. The father, Alex Murdaugh, insisted he had just arrived, shocked and confused, claiming he had no idea what had happened. But what began as a tragic report quickly spiraled into one of the most shocking criminal investigations in modern American history.
They are dead, aren't they?
Just turn on those.
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
Randy. Maggie's Paul Murdaugh. Where are you now? All right. Yeah, the police are here now. The police are here now.
Affirmative.
That's my brother.
Okay. When was the last time you were here with them? Or talked to them or anything like that?
It was earlier tonight. I don't know the exact time, but
Okay.
I left. I was probably gone an hour and a half from my mom's, and I saw them about 45 minutes before that.
Okay.
I rode around with Paul for 2 hours this afternoon in the pickup truck.
That's your son, Paul? Okay.
Somebody going to check him?
Yes, sir. They've already checked them.
They did check him?
Yes, sir.
It's official that they're dead?
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
I'm sorry.
No. You're fine.
I'm very sorry. Gotta call her parents.
What's her name?
Her name is Maggie Murdaugh. Margaret Branstetter Murdaugh. How you doing?
What's her birthday?
9/15/68.
Okay. And what's your son's first name? You said Paul?
Paul Terry Murdaugh.
And what's his birthday?
Jason, if you have anybody
4.
coming through town, that could stop and pick up that tent. I see lighting off in the distance.
What are they covering them up?
I got some getting dressed now, Sheriff. I'll have somebody stop and grab it.
Tell them they don't have to do that.
As detectives dug deeper, the story they uncovered was far more tangled than anyone expected. The murders weren't just an isolated event. They were the breaking point in a long chain of hidden financial crimes, years of deception, and a life built on lies that was finally collapsing. The deeper investigators looked, the more they found: missing money, secret schemes, legal scandals, and a powerful attorney living a double life as everything he had built started to crumble around him. This wasn't just the fall of one man. It was the unraveling of a dynasty. The Murdaugh murders would expose a world of influence used recklessly, a family empire collapsing under its own secrets, and a community forced to confront the truth about people they once believed could do no wrong. It became a case that gripped the nation, not simply because of the tragedy itself, but because of everything the tragedy revealed. This is the complete story of how a powerful family, protected by wealth and status for generations, lost everything. This is the rise and fall of the Murdaugh dynasty. This is the Murdaugh murders, how a powerful family lost everything. And if you're ready to uncover this case from its darkest roots to its final unraveling, you're in the right place. Welcome to Dark Crime Casefiles. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe, so you never miss a story where no crime stays in the dark. For generations before the murders ever made headlines, the Murdaugh name meant something in South Carolina's Lowcountry. To understand the scale of the fall, you first have to understand the size of the empire. The Murdaugh dynasty began in 1920, when Randolph Murdaugh Sr. established a small law practice in Hampton County, a quiet, rural region where personal relationships mattered just as much as courtroom strategy. But what started as a modest practice quickly evolved into something far larger. Within a few years, Randolph Sr. became the solicitor, the chief prosecutor for South Carolina's 14th Judicial Circuit. It was a position of immense power, giving him influence over criminal cases, investigations, and decisions that shaped entire communities. When Randolph Sr. died, his son took over. And when he passed, the next Randolph stepped in. 3 generations of Murdaugh men served as the region's top prosecutors, a streak of authority unmatched anywhere else in the state. Their law firm, known today as Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Eltsroth, and Dietrich, became one of the most powerful legal forces in the region, handling lucrative civil cases and generating wealth that stretched across land, businesses, and deep political connections. By the time the third Randolph retired, the Murdaugh family was woven into the fabric of the justice system. Judges knew them. Police respected them. Attorneys feared them. In tiny Hampton County, the Murdaughs were not just lawyers, they were the law. And into that legacy was born Richard Alexander Alex Murdaugh, the latest heir to the dynasty. To many, Alex seemed poised to carry the torch, a successful attorney, charismatic, well-connected, and always ready with a handshake. He married Margaret Maggie Murdaugh, a warm, outgoing woman known for her social presence and loyalty to her family. Together they had 2 sons, Paul, the younger son, energetic and known for his social life, and Buster, the older son, quieter and more reserved. Their home base was the now infamous Moselle estate, a sprawling property stretching over 1,000 acres of fields, woods, and trails. It was the kind of land that symbolized generational wealth, hunting grounds, guest houses, and the dog kennels that would later become central to the case. To the outside world, the Murdaughs lived a picture-perfect southern life. Large homes, private education, boats, hunting trips, and the confidence of a family sitting atop 90 years of influence. But beneath the polish, small cracks had already begun to appear. Alex was facing mounting financial pressure, debts that no one fully understood yet. Whispers circulated about substance use and stress that seemed to be growing behind the scenes. Legal troubles were emerging around Paul, tied to a tragic boat incident that had drawn unwanted public scrutiny. And inside the walls of Moselle, the perfect facade of stability was not nearly as solid as it appeared. For decades, the Murdaugh name carried power. But as the years passed, that power was becoming harder to maintain, stretched thin by lawsuits, investigations, and choices that would eventually catch up with them. Before the fall of the dynasty, the warning signs were already there. Most people simply didn't see them yet. The strength of the Murdaugh dynasty had always rested on one idea: that the family was in control. But in the years leading up to the murders, that control was slipping, slowly at first and then all at once. Behind the walls of their respected law firm, Alex Murdaugh was leading a life that few people knew about. According to later investigations, he had developed a dependence on pain medication after an injury and surgery years earlier. What began as medical use reportedly grew into something far more consuming. That addiction, combined with decades of unchecked power, created a dangerous combination. And to maintain the lifestyle everyone believed he had, and to fuel the habits no one knew about, Alex crossed lines that even those close to him never imagined. Financial records would eventually reveal a pattern of misconduct stretching back more than a decade. Alex had quietly diverted money from his own law firm, taken settlement funds from clients who trusted him, and opened the door to millions of dollars that simply disappeared. It wasn't a single mistake. It was a system, built carefully, repeatedly, and hidden behind the shield of a family name that people rarely questioned. But finances weren't the only cracks forming beneath the surface. In 2018, tragedy struck at the Murdaugh household when Gloria Satterfield, the family's longtime housekeeper and caregiver, died after a reported fall at the Moselle property. Gloria had worked with the family for over 20 years. She was trusted, familiar, and loved. The incident was described as an accident. But in the years that followed, the circumstances surrounding her death would become a point of deep controversy. Insurance money meant for Gloria's sons was diverted without their knowledge. Settlements were reached quietly, off the public's radar. And once again, money went missing, linked directly back to Alex. Still, none of these issues had yet become public. The dynasty's image was cracking, but the cracks remained hidden. Until 2019, when the first scandal the family could not control burst into the open. In the early hours of February 24th, a boat owned by the Murdaugh family crashed in the waters near Paris Island. Among the group of young passengers was Paul Murdaugh, and at just 19 years old, he was alleged to have been driving. In the chaos of the crash, one passenger, Mallory Beach, did not make it home. Her disappearance and the tragic recovery that followed sent shockwaves through the community. For the first time in decades, the Murdaughs were not viewed as untouchable. They were at the center of a public tragedy. Civil lawsuits formed almost immediately, lawsuits that threatened not just money but something far more dangerous to the family: exposure. The families involved began pushing for accountability, demanding transparency, and digging deeper into the world the Murdaughs had always kept private. Investigators, lawyers, and insurance companies began asking questions. Subpoenas were issued, depositions scheduled, and with every new step, the pressure tightened. Paul faced criminal charges as well, adding another layer of scrutiny and emotional strain. The public began to criticize the family's influence, questioning whether their connections would try to shield Paul from consequences. And behind the scenes, Alex's hidden financial schemes were becoming harder to maintain. The boat crash threatened to reveal everything. It was the beginning of a perfect storm: growing debt, hidden addiction, a decade of quiet financial fraud, civil suits that risked exposing the truth, a community turning against a family once seen as untouchable. The dynasty was no longer just cracking, it was beginning to crumble. By early 2021, the pressure surrounding the Murdaugh family had reached a level that even their long-standing influence could no longer contain. Financial strains were tightening. Civil lawsuits from the boat crash were moving forward. Investigators and attorneys were circling closer to Alex's hidden misconduct. And inside the family, tension was rising. Then came June 7, 2021, a date that would forever mark the downfall of the Murdaugh dynasty. It began like an ordinary day, at least on the surface. Alex Murdaugh spent the afternoon working. Paul was at Moselle, moving between chores and time at the dog kennels. Maggie, according to reports and messages later examined by investigators, had been hesitant about going to Moselle that evening, but eventually went. As the evening progressed, phone data later showed normal activity: messages, calls, and routine movements around the property. There was nothing outwardly unusual. No sign of what was about to unfold. Sometime later that night, events occurred that would shock not only South Carolina but the entire country. When Alex contacted 911, he reported arriving at the dog kennels to find Maggie and their son Paul unresponsive. The call triggered an immediate response from law enforcement. From the moment deputies arrived, the investigation moved quickly. The property was vast, hundreds of acres of open land, woods, trails, and buildings. Detectives began documenting the scene, examining Maggie and Paul's locations, and piecing together a timeline of when they were last known to be alive. Alex told investigators he had been away at the time, visiting his mother at another residence, and said he returned home to discover what happened. He appeared emotional and distressed as he recounted his version of the evening.
They are dead, aren't they?
I just turn on those.
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
Granny. Baby's all are dead. Where are you now? Hi. Yeah, the police are here now. The police are here now.
Affirmative.
That's my brother.
Okay. When was the last time you were here with them? Or talked to them or anything like that?
It was earlier tonight. I don't know the exact time, but
Okay.
I left. I was probably gone an hour and a half from my mom's, and I saw them about 45 minutes before that.
Okay.
I rode around with Paul for 2 hours this afternoon in the pickup truck.
That's your son, Paul? Okay.
Somebody going to check them?
Yes, sir. They've already checked them.
They did check them?
Yes, sir.
It's official that they're dead?
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
I'm sorry.
No. You're fine.
I'm very sorry. Gotta call her parents.
What's her name?
Her name is Maggie Murdaugh. Margaret Brandstetter Murdaugh. How you doing?
What's her birthday?
9/15/68.
Okay. And what's your son's first name? You said Paul?
Paul Carey Murdaugh.
And what's his birthday?
Jason, if you have anybody
4.
coming through town that could stop and pick up that tent, I see lighting off in the distance.
What are they covering them up?
I got some getting dressed now, Sheriff. I'll have somebody stop and grab it.
Tell them they don't have to do that.
But even in those early hours, investigators noted inconsistencies and unusual details that would later become central to the case. The community's response was immediate and intense. The Murdaughs were not just any family, they were the family. News of the deaths spread quickly, followed by speculation, fear, and disbelief. For decades, the family had been pillars of the region. To many, the idea of a double tragedy on their property seemed unthinkable. But investigators quietly continued their work, examining cell phone data, tracking Alex's movements, studying Maggie and Paul's final known communications, reviewing records and surveillance from nearby areas. And as the weeks passed, a larger picture began to form. Financial irregularities, legal pressures, strained relationships, timeline gaps, unanswered questions. The public still had no idea what investigators were uncovering. But behind the scenes, something was clear. The deaths at Moselle were not isolated events. They were connected to everything that had been unraveling around the family for years. The case was shifting from a tragic discovery into a complex, far-reaching criminal investigation that would eventually expose the truth behind one of the most powerful families in the South. And slowly, a new and unexpected suspect began to emerge. As news of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh's deaths spread, the world watched in shock. But while the public mourned and speculated, law enforcement quietly began piecing together a timeline that would reveal just how complex the case had become. Investigators immediately focused on phone records, GPS data, and security footage. Every step of the Murdaugh's evening was scrutinized. Calls were traced, text messages recovered, and digital footprints reconstructed to see where each family member had been in their final hours. The painstaking work was methodical, and for the first time, cracks in Alex Murdaugh's story began to appear.
To do this.
I understand.
Yeah.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
So you don't have any problem with it.
So just start at the top, take your time.
Like when I came back here.
Sorry.
And I could see his brain on his... And I ran over. I tried to turn him over, and I don't know. I figured it out. his cell phone popped out of his pocket. I started to try to do something with it, thinking maybe, but then I put it back down really quickly. Then I went to my wife, and I could see.
Did you touch?
And I called 911 pretty much right away, and she was very good. I talked to her. I told her I was going to get off the phone to call some family members. I did that.
What family members did you call?
I called my brother Randy, and I called my brother John. And I tried to call a little boy, a real good friend that's right around the corner from here, but I didn't get him.
Okay. What all was around Paul when you walked up?
Blood.
Anything else?
I mean, there were some body things, yes, sir.
I mean, like any other evidence? I know you said the phone fell out the pocket, but did you see anything else that didn't belong or shouldn't belong or that wasn't part of Paul?
No, sir, not the. No, sir.
How about Maggie?
No, sir.
You didn't see anything around them? What made you come out here tonight?
I went to, my mom's a late stage Alzheimer's patient. My dad's in the hospital. My mom gets anxious when she does. I went to check on them and Maggie. Maggie's a dog lover, and she fools with the dogs. And I knew she'd gone to the kennel. I was at the house. I left the house and went to my mom's for just a little while. Tried to call her when I left. Texted her, no response. When I got back to the house was obviously nobody was in there, so I figured they're still up here fooling around. Paul was gonna be getting set up to plant. Our sunflower seeds got sprayed and died, and he was refiguring to plant the sunflower seeds. So I came back up here and I drove up and saw and called.
Had Maggie and Paul been arguing over anything?
No.
What was their relationship like?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. How about yours and Maggie's?
Wonderful. I mean, I'm sure we had little things here and there, but we had a wonderful marriage, wonderful relationship.
And yours and Paul's relationship?
As good as it could be.
How old was Paul?
22.
Okay. Have you talked with any of these guys tonight?
Talked with Nolan, yes, sir.
Is he out here?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I tried to call Rogan, was one of the people he's the boy that I told you lives around the corner.
Okay.
That's very, he's just a good, helpful young man. You mind if I open the door really quickly?
Go right ahead. Do what you need to do. So is there anybody that you can think of that we need to talk to tonight? Is there a name that comes to mind?
I mean, I can't tell you anybody that I'm overly suspicious of off the top of my head.
Okay.
I mean, this is such a stupid thing. I'm even embarrassed to say it. But it just didn't make any sense. I just hired a guy out here, and he wasn't cutting the mustard, but I hadn't told him this yet. Paul's been working with him a lot. He killed the sunflower seeds in our dove field just recently, which is why Paul was here doing this. He told Paul a story the other day about how when he was in high school, he got in a fight with some black guys. And the FBI undercover team observed him fighting those guys and put him on an undercover team with 3 Navy SEALs. And their job was to kill radical Black Panthers. And they did that from Myrtle Beach to Savannah. Now, I really don't think this guy, is probably the person, but that's just so freaking...
Yeah, that's kind of far-fetched story.
It's weird. But he was off today.
Okay.
He took his daddy to the doctor.
What's his name?
C.B. Rowe.
R-O-W-E?
Yeah, and I sent him a message to text me earlier today about the sunflowers, and he called me back when I was on the way to my mom's house.
Did you talk to him at that time?
Briefly, I was on the phone with a lawyer friend of mine named Chris Wilson from Bamberg, so I told him I'd call him back tomorrow and see him in the morning.
When you briefly talked to Mr. Rowe, what was his demeanor or attitude? Or
I mean, it seemed normal. I mean, I asked him about the sunflowers, and so, I mean, I'm sure he's a little bit.
Where does he live?
I don't exactly know. Somewhere in in Bronson.
Okay. Do you have his phone number?
I do.
You got it with you, closer?
I do.
At the same time, detectives reviewed financial records and legal documents, slowly connecting the dots between years of hidden financial misconduct and the pressures that may have been weighing on the family. Missing funds, diverted insurance payments, and unexplained withdrawals painted a picture that went far beyond a tragic night. It was a web of deception spanning decades. Local law enforcement coordinated with state and federal agencies due to the complexity of the case. The family's long history of influence over prosecutors and legal institutions meant investigators had to proceed carefully. Every interview and every detail of evidence collection was double-checked, ensuring that nothing could be dismissed as rumor or bias. As questions mounted, investigators also began looking into the family's broader history: the 2019 boat crash that had resulted in Mallory Beach's death, the suspicious handling of Gloria Satterfield's accident years earlier, and financial misconduct within the law firm. Each prior incident now seemed more significant, forming a timeline of pressure and potential motive. In the public eye, Alex Murdaugh remained the grieving husband and father. But behind the scenes, evidence suggested a different narrative. Discrepancies in his statements, inconsistencies in his timeline, and suspicious activity in financial accounts began to raise red flags. Even trusted friends and colleagues noticed changes: erratic behavior, frequent absences, and increasing secrecy. The investigation wasn't just about proving what happened on that June night. It was about uncovering decades of hidden truth. Law enforcement worked tirelessly, tracking digital footprints, analyzing communications, and reconstructing every detail. By the time the first press conferences began, it was clear: this case was far more than a simple tragedy. It was an intricate story of power, secrecy, and a family empire slowly unraveling. Every piece of evidence pointed to a reality that few wanted to face. The perfect storm that had been quietly brewing for years was now exposed for the world to see. The stage was set for one of the most public and closely watched criminal investigations in recent American history. And as the inquiry deepened, the very foundations of the Murdaugh dynasty began to crumble under the weight of truth. As the investigation into Maggie and Paul Murdaugh's deaths deepened, law enforcement began uncovering layers of deception that stretched far beyond that single tragic night. What first appeared to be a family tragedy was now intertwined with years of hidden financial misconduct, secret schemes, and carefully concealed fraud. Alex Murdaugh, the scion of a family built on trust and influence, had cultivated a system of financial secrecy that few outsiders, or even close associates, could penetrate. Investigators discovered that he had been diverting client funds, misappropriating settlement money, and funneling large sums from the family law firm into personal accounts. Millions of dollars were unaccounted for, and many of these transactions had gone unnoticed because of the family's long-standing reputation and local influence. But financial wrongdoing alone was not what drew national attention. It was the context. These actions were occurring while the Murdaughs were maintaining a public image of wealth, stability, and respectability. Their sprawling Moselle estate, luxury vehicles, and social prominence masked the reality of mounting debt and misused funds. Even the family's philanthropic appearances and public engagements were part of a careful balance, designed to keep scrutiny at bay. At the same time, the death of longtime housekeeper Gloria Satterfield came under renewed attention. Investigators noted that insurance payouts intended for her family had been redirected, raising serious ethical and legal questions about Alex Murdaugh's handling of the situation. It became increasingly clear that what was once described as a tragic accident might have been part of a broader pattern of financial manipulation and concealment. Adding to the complexity was the infamous 2019 boat crash, in which Paul Murdaugh had been involved. Civil lawsuits and ongoing legal proceedings created immense pressure on the family, both financially and socially. The possibility that exposure from these lawsuits could intersect with Alex's hidden embezzlement added an urgent layer of risk, one that, in hindsight, seemed almost inevitable in leading to further crisis. As investigators dug deeper, emails, financial statements, and bank records painted a troubling picture. There were patterns of withdrawals and transfers that suggested long-term premeditation, not isolated mistakes. It was a sophisticated system of concealment, built over years, that now became a key focus of the investigation. By the summer of 2021, the narrative was shifting. Alex Murdaugh was no longer seen simply as a grieving husband and father. He was now a central figure in a web of financial crimes that implicated both his professional and personal life. Public perception began to change as reporters and investigators highlighted the contrast between the Murdaughs' public grandeur and the private reality of their misdeeds. The unraveling of financial secrets exposed something deeper, a family dynasty that had leveraged decades of influence and trust to hide its vulnerabilities. And as the layers were peeled back, it became increasingly evident that the deaths of Maggie and Paul were not merely tragic events. They were inextricably linked to the pressures, debts, and secrets that had quietly accumulated over generations. By the time the first indictments and lawsuits were publicized, the story had grown far beyond a local tragedy. It had become a cautionary tale of power, corruption, and the hidden cost of unchecked influence. A narrative that would continue to shock the nation as the investigation moved toward prosecution. The stage was now set for the legal reckoning that would bring decades of secrets into the light, exposing the full extent of the Murdaugh dynasty's collapse. As the summer of 2021 progressed, the Murdaugh story began to dominate headlines. What had started as a shocking double death on the Moselle estate was now evolving into a complex narrative of legal investigations, financial crimes, and public scrutiny. For the first time, the empire that had once seemed untouchable faced the reality of accountability. Alex Murdaugh, the figurehead of the family dynasty, was under intense scrutiny. Investigators meticulously reviewed years of bank records, client accounts, and law firm transactions, building a case that would eventually reveal millions of dollars misappropriated from both clients and associates. At the same time, civil suits stemming from the 2019 boat crash, coupled with lingering questions about Gloria Satterfield's death, kept the spotlight firmly on the family. By late 2021, the first criminal charges were filed against Alex, including allegations of embezzlement and financial fraud. The indictments represented a seismic shift. A member of a family long seen as untouchable was now facing formal legal consequences. The public was riveted, watching a narrative unfold that combined tragedy, scandal, and betrayal on multiple levels. Media outlets and local residents began connecting dots they had previously ignored. The combination of financial misconduct, previous incidents like the boat crash, and the deaths of Maggie and Paul created a portrait of a family under immense pressure, struggling to maintain appearances while the walls of their empire were collapsing. Public opinion turned swiftly, as the Murdaugh's once revered name became associated with deceit, privilege, and corruption. As Alex prepared for trial, investigators continued to uncover evidence of long-term planning and concealment. Emails, bank statements, and witness testimony suggested that the financial mismanagement was deliberate and, in some cases, tied to personal addictions and attempts to sustain a lavish lifestyle. The narrative of a grieving husband was now juxtaposed with that of a man allegedly orchestrating a series of sophisticated cover-ups. Meanwhile, the courtroom became a stage not only for legal proceedings but also for public reckoning. The trial was about more than guilt or innocence. It was about confronting the consequences of decades of influence, secrecy, and unchecked power.
I am so sorry that I let you down. I am so sorry that I have not been able to be with you. During such hard times. I am so sorry that I did so many things that are so contradictory to every single thing Mom and I ever taught you. And Paul, I am so sorry. I am so very sorry that the things that I did and that I am pleading guilty to here today have somehow caused some people, especially people on social media and some people in the media, to somehow believe that based on the things that I did, that it is somehow okay to make false, baseless, unsubstantiated claims against you that are not only based on no facts and no evidence whatsoever, but are also not based on any semblance of reality whatsoever. And I am so sorry that you have had to go through that. I know, Buster, that you know that I have always been proud of you. I have never been more proud of you than I am for the way that you have handled all of the adversity that I put on you. Your whole family is proud of you. Mom is proud of you, and Papa is proud of you. I see in letters, emails, and messages that people give to my attorneys how impressed people are with the way that you have carried yourself through all of this. I want you to remember that rational, reasonable thinking people never make as much noise as haters do. I want you to continue to tune them out and continue to be the bigger person as you have this whole time. I want you to continue to stay positive. And stay the course. I love you so much. And I am so proud of you.
For the community that had long revered the Murdaugh family, the unfolding drama was both fascinating and unsettling, forcing a confrontation with uncomfortable truths. Throughout this period, the Moselle estate remained emblematic of the dynasty's fall. Once a symbol of privilege, it now represented the fragility of wealth and reputation when hidden secrets are finally exposed. Every new filing, every press release, and every court appearance reinforced the lesson that no matter how powerful a family may seem, truth has a way of coming to light. By the time Alex Murdaugh's trial approached, the story had captured national attention, creating a tense, high-stakes environment in which legal strategy, public opinion, and the weight of family legacy all collided. The dynasty that had lasted nearly a century was now facing the full measure of justice, and the nation watched, waiting to see how the chapters of power, deception, and tragedy would ultimately conclude. When Alex Murdaugh finally stood in court, it marked a moment years in the making, the culmination of decades of influence, hidden crimes, and public scrutiny. The courtroom was packed with journalists, locals, and legal experts, all drawn to a case that had captivated the nation. For many, it was hard to reconcile the image of the Murdaughs as a respected dynasty with the allegations now on full display. The prosecution presented a meticulous case, built on a combination of financial records, digital evidence, and witness testimony. Investigators detailed patterns of embezzlement, fraud, and misappropriation of client funds, tracing transactions that spanned years. Each piece of evidence was carefully explained, showing how Alex allegedly diverted millions of dollars, sometimes using the family law firm as a conduit. Testimony from former colleagues, employees, and financial experts painted a vivid picture of a family empire sustained by appearances. Witnesses described the lavish lifestyle, the Moselle estate, and the social standing of the family, contrasting it with the under-the-surface pressures, mounting debts, secretive behavior, and addictive habits. Even as Alex appeared composed in the courtroom, the evidence suggested that the facade he had maintained for so long was finally cracking. The civil suits connected to the 2019 boat crash also played a role. Depositions revealed tensions surrounding Paul Murdaugh's alleged actions, adding context to the legal and personal pressures the family had faced in the years leading up to the deaths of Maggie and Paul. Investigators emphasized that while these incidents did not directly explain the deaths, they created an environment of stress, secrecy, and mounting exposure. Throughout the trial, the prosecution and defense sparred over motive, intent, and credibility. Forensic experts testified on the chain of evidence, financial auditors explained the complex misappropriations, and community members reflected on the family's legacy. Every testimony, every document, and every question from the bench chipped away at the image of invulnerability the Murdaughs had once enjoyed. Finally, after weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. The decision sent shockwaves through South Carolina and beyond. Alex Murdaugh was found guilty on multiple counts related to financial crimes, cementing the collapse of a dynasty that had once seemed untouchable. The courtroom reaction was intense, reflecting the gravity of the revelations and the impact of decades-long deception coming to light. The verdict represented more than a legal outcome, it was a symbolic reckoning. For the community, the nation, and the families affected by the Murdaughs' actions, it was a confirmation that power, privilege, and influence cannot indefinitely shield wrongdoing. The dynasty had fallen, piece by piece, under the weight of its own secrets. As the court emptied and the public absorbed the outcome, one truth remained clear. The Murdaugh legacy, once a symbol of authority and respect, had been permanently altered by deception, tragedy, and the inexorable pursuit of justice. The courtroom verdict closed one chapter, but the story of the Murdaughs was far from over. In the wake of the trial, the fallout rippled across the community, the legal system, and the family itself. For the residents of South Carolina's Lowcountry, the Murdaughs' fall was shocking on both personal and societal levels. For decades, the family had been woven into the fabric of the community, holding positions of authority, influence, and trust. Now, those same people were forced to confront the reality that a family once seen as untouchable had engaged in long-term financial misconduct, deception, and behavior that had left lasting scars. Trust, once assumed, had been broken. Legal repercussions extended beyond Alex Murdaugh's convictions. Investigators continued to examine unresolved financial schemes, insurance settlements, and potential co-conspirators, expanding the scope of accountability. Civil lawsuits, many still ongoing, threatened to reclaim millions of dollars allegedly misappropriated over years. Law enforcement agencies and oversight bodies began reviewing other cases linked to the family, questioning whether influence had previously shaped outcomes that should have been impartial. On a personal level, the family faced a profound reckoning. Surviving son Buster Murdaugh had to navigate life without his mother and brother while reconciling the public unraveling of his family's name. Extended relatives and close associates found themselves under scrutiny, forced to answer uncomfortable questions or reconsider relationships long taken for granted. Friends, neighbors, and the broader public watched the once grand Moselle estate transform from a symbol of prosperity to a site of tragedy, scandal, and legal inquiry. The media spotlight intensified, highlighting the stark contrast between the Murdaughs' public image and the private reality. National attention amplified discussions about privilege, accountability, and the consequences of unchecked power. For some, the story became emblematic of systemic issues: influence in the justice system, wealth shielding wrongdoing, and the ways long-standing reputations can mask serious misconduct. Yet amid the scrutiny, the narrative also underscored resilience and accountability. Law enforcement agencies, journalists, and ordinary citizens witnessed a rare moment in which wealth and influence could not prevent justice from unfolding. The saga demonstrated that even families entrenched in authority are not immune to consequence, and that transparency and vigilance remain critical in holding power to account. By the end of 2021, the Murdaughs' legacy had been fundamentally altered. What had begun as a dynasty of authority and respect had been replaced by a story of tragedy, corruption, and public reckoning. The ripple effects, emotional, legal, and societal, would continue for years, serving as a cautionary tale for communities everywhere about the price of secrecy and the limits of power. The fall of the Murdaugh family was complete, but the lessons of their rise, their secrets, and their collapse would linger far beyond the courtroom. The story of the Murdaugh family is a cautionary tale of power, privilege, and the weight of hidden truths. For nearly a century, their name commanded respect, authority, and influence, shaping the very justice system of South Carolina's Lowcountry. Yet behind the veneer of wealth and prestige, decades of secrecy, deception, and unchecked actions quietly eroded the dynasty from within. From financial misconduct and the tragic deaths that shocked a community, to civil suits, criminal investigations, and ultimately convictions, the Murdaugh saga reminds us that no amount of influence can shield wrongdoing indefinitely. The fall of the family stands as a testament to the enduring power of accountability and the importance of vigilance, even when confronting those who seem untouchable. The legacy of the Murdaughs is now defined not by their law firm or their societal standing, but by the lessons left behind. The fragility of unchecked power, the consequences of long-hidden secrets, the impact of individual choices on entire families and communities. For those who lived through the events, and for the generations watching from afar, the story continues to resonate. It is a reminder that influence, wealth, and legacy can be fleeting when built without transparency and responsibility. As we reflect on this dynasty, it is clear that the Murdaugh story will linger in history, not simply as a tale of wealth or tragedy, but as a profound example of the limits of power and the inevitability of truth. If you followed this story from the beginning, you now understand how a family that once seemed untouchable fell, piece by piece, under the weight of its own secrets. And if you want to continue uncovering stories like this, stories where no crime stays in the dark, subscribe to Dark Crime Casefiles. Turn on notifications so you never miss a case, and join us as we shine a light on the truths that others try to hide. Because in the world of crime, the truth always matters, and here, nothing stays hidden for long.